Okay, welcome in. I'm going to be reviewing Wednesday's and Thursday's action from the National Hockey League. There are a total of 4 games on Wednesday's schedule, starting in Seattle as the Kraken played host to the Montreal Canadiens. You can see the final score would be 5-4 in overtime. Brandon Montour would kick things off in the first period, getting his 14th of the year from Jordan Eberle, 4:54 of the first frame. Eli Tolvanen would increase the lead to 2-0 in the second period, getting his 19th of the year from Eberle and Chandler Stevenson, 4:47 of the second frame. Patrick Laine would score, getting his 15th of the year on the power play from Nick Suzuki and Lane Hudson, 7:11 of the second period. Alex Newhook would tie the game up in the second, getting his 13th of the year from Patrick Laine, 11:21 of the middle frame. Staying in the second period, Juraj Slavkovsky would get his 13th of the year from Caulfield and Lane Hudson, 14:04 of the second period. He would score again, getting his second goal of the game, getting his 14th of the year from Struble and Nick Suzuki, 7:18 of the third period. So over 7 minutes into the third period, the Habs had a 4-2 lead. Unfortunately, that lead would not last long, as Yanni Neiman would get his first goal of his NHL career, so congratulations on that, on the power play from Jordan Eberle and Brandon Montour, 10:53 of the third, cutting the lead to 4-3. Matty Beniers would score with 2 minutes and 12 seconds to go on the power play, getting his 16th of the season from Vince Dunn and Brandon Montour. And then, I know this might seem kind of wild, but just 4 seconds into the overtime frame, Brandon Montour would get the game-winning goal, his second of the game, his 15th of the year from Chandler Stevenson. So Stevenson won the faceoff, Montour went down and scored 4 seconds into the overtime frame. That has to be, if it's not a record for the fastest goal in the overtime frame, it's got to be up there. So yeah, 5-4 would be the final score. All right, the next place we're going to take a look at is Detroit as the Red Wings played host to the Buffalo Sabres. Tage Thompson would kick things off in the first period, getting his 34th goal of the year from Bowen Byram, 7:38 of the first period. Marco Kasper would tie the game up at 1, getting his 11th of the year from Edmondson and Patrick Kane, 12:36 of the first frame. Alex DeBrincat would break the tie, 15:40 of the first, getting his 30th of the year from Patrick Kane and Kasper. Speaking of Patrick Kane, he got on the goal scorer sheet with just under a minute to go, 53 seconds to be exact, getting his 16th of the year on the power play from DeBrincat and Dylan Larkin. So the Red Wings had a 3-1 lead heading in to the second period. Just kidding. Josh Norris would score 18 seconds after, getting his 21st of the season from Benson and Tage Thompson. So the Detroit Red Wings had a 3-2 lead heading into the second period. There we go. Vladimir Tarasenko would increase the lead to 4-2, getting his 9th of the year from Dylan Larkin, 10:54 of the middle frame. With just under 2 minutes to go, Zach Benson would cut the lead to 4-3, getting his 10th goal of the year on the power play from Owen Power and Ryan McLeod. 1:36 of the third, Patrick Kane would get his second goal of the game, his 17th of the season on the power play from Alex DeBrincat and Lucas Raymond. Marco Kasper would get his second goal of the game, his 12th of the season from DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, 5:39 of the third period, increasing the lead to 6-3. With about 5.5 minutes to go, Moritz Seider would get his 7th goal of the season on the power play from Larkin and Lucas Raymond, 14:31 of the third. So 7-3 would be the final score, basically a football score between Detroit and Buffalo. Battle of two teams that are competing against each other for the final playoff spot in the Western Conference, as the Calgary Flames played host to the Vancouver Canucks. Pius Suter would give the Canucks a early 1-0 lead. I say early, but it was over 13 minutes into the first period, getting his 17th of the season from Marcus Pettersson, I should say, and Philip Hronek, 13:33 of the first. Just over 4 minutes after that, Nazem Kadri would tie the game up at 1, getting his 23rd of the year from Rasmus Andersson and Kevin Ball. Just over halfway through the second period, Jake DeBrusk would break the tie, getting his 23rd goal of the year on the power play from Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson, 10:32 of the middle period. Jonathan Huberdeau would get on the goal scorer sheet, tying the game up at 2, getting his 23rd goal of the year, shorthanded from Kevin Rooney and Mackenzie Weegar, 13:58 of the second period. He would get a power play goal in the same period, getting his second goal of the game, his 24th of the year from Uyghur and Kadri, 16:01 of the second period, putting the Flames up 3-2. Elias Pettersson would tie the game up in the third, getting his 14th of the year from Höglander and Mancini, 13:16 of the third period. There was no scoring the rest of the third or overtime. This would have to be settled in a shootout, where Connor Garland would get the game-winning goal. The Canucks would win 4-3 in a shootout. And the last game from Wednesday took place in Utah as we had the Utah Hockey Club playing host to the Anaheim Ducks. Jake McBain would kick things off for Utah in the first, getting his 12th goal of the year, assisted by Ian Cole and Josh Doan, 11:03 of the first. Alexander Kerfoot would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his 8th of the year from Dylan Guenther and Brett Hayton, 14:31 of the second period. Staying in the second, Alex Killorn would put the Ducks on the board, getting his 14th of the year from Leo Carlsson and Gauthier, I should say. 15:53 of the third, cutting the lead to 2-1. 3 minutes and 22 seconds into the third, Mason McTavish would tie the game up at 2, getting his 18th goal of the year on the power play from Trevor Zegras and Jake Lacombe. 3:22 of the third. Dylan Guenther would get the game-winning goal, 7:03 of the third, his 24th of the season on the power play from Mikhail Sergachev and Captain Clayton Keller. They got to make a song about that. That's just it just rolls off the tongue so nicely. So the Utah Hockey Club would win 3-2. All right, now we'll take a look at Thursday's action from the National Hockey League. Might as well. So we had a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games on Thursday's schedule. Starting in Toronto, as we had the Maple Leafs playing host to the Florida Panthers. The top 2 teams in the Atlantic Division were duking it out. So exactly 2 minutes into the first period, John Tavares would open up the scoring, getting his 27th goal of the year from William Nylander and Sam Benoit. Sam Bennett would tie the game up at 1, getting his 21st goal of the year on power play from Sam Skovich and Sam Reinhart. 17:51 of the first. Nico Mikolaou would score in the second, getting his 5th of the year from AJ Greer. 13:56 of the second period, giving the Panthers a 2-1 lead. Sam Bennett would increase the lead to 2, getting his 22nd goal of the year from Sam Reinhart and Sam Skovich. 17:13 of the second. Max Domi would cut the lead to 3-2, getting his 5th goal of the year from Jarnkrok and Ekman Larsson. 4:26 of the third period. The Panthers would hold on to win 3-2. The Ottawa Senators played host to the Boston Bruins. So we had 4 teams all competing against each other from the Atlantic Division. Shane Pinto would kick things off for the Sens in the first period, getting his 16th of the season from Riley Gregg and Michael Amadio, 3:44 of the first. Tyler Clevin would increase the lead to 2-0, getting his 4th of the year from Mantipalo and Drake Batherson, 9:09 of the first. Casey Mittelstadt would score for the Bruins, getting his 12th of the year from Letary and Witherspoon, 10:57 of the first period, cutting the lead to 2-1. Drake Batherson would increase the lead to 3-1, getting his 17th of the year on the power play from Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle, 16:21 of the first. Riley Gregg would increase the lead to 4-1, getting his 11th goal of the year from Shane Pinto, 16:43 of the first period. So the Senators had a 4-1 lead at that point. In the second period, David Pastrnak would cut the lead in half, getting his 34th goal of the year from Beecher, 6:59 of the second period. Drake Batherson would score again, his second goal of the game, his 18th of the season from Dylan Cousins and Tom Chabot, 11:01 of the second period. Marat Kuznutinov would cut the lead back down to 2, getting his 3rd of the season from Elias Lindholm and Lacko, 13:55 of the second period. Late in the third, the Sens were up by 2. Boston pulled their goalie. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be, as Claude Giroux would get the empty netter, his 13th of the season, unassisted, with 1 minute and 16 seconds to go in the game. So the Sens would double up on the Bruins, 6-3. The Philadelphia Flyers played host to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Gage Goncalves would open up the scoring for Tampa Bay in the first, getting his fourth goal of the season on the power play from Yanni Gourde and Ryan McDonough, 8:29 of the first. Bobby Brink would tie the game up at 14:20 of the first period, getting his ninth goal of the year, assisted by Leichsel and Ryan Paling. Zemgus Girgensons would get his second goal of the season from Juranic and Brett Hale 15 seconds into the second period, giving the Lightning a 2-1 lead. Bobby Brink would tie the game up at 2, getting his second goal of the game, his 10th of the season from Sean Couturier, 10:55 of the middle frame. Ryan Paling would give Philadelphia their first lead of the night, his 5th of the season from Leichsel and Bobby Brink, and that goal happened with 59 seconds to go in the second period. Cam Atkinson would score his 4th of the year from Victor Hedman and Moser, 3:50 of the third. This game would need to go to a shootout where Owen Tippett would get the game-winning goal, his 20th of the season, so the Flyers would come back and win 4-3. The Pittsburgh Penguins played host to the St. Louis Blues. Ryan Graves, hard to believe it took this long to get his first goal of the season, would open up the scoring for the Penguins, assisted by Lizotte, 2:17 of the first period. I'm just curious how many shots he had before he actually got his first goal of the season. Connor Timmins would give the Penguins a 2-0 lead, his third goal of the year from Danton Heinen and Tomasino, 2:20 of the second period. And it's hard to believe that all three of those guys all played on different teams at the start of the season, and now they're all together. Zach Bolduc would cut the lead to 2-1, getting his 12th of the season on the power play, 11:35 of the second period, assisted by Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich, 11:35 of the second. Connor Dewar would get his first goal of the season from Lizotte and Erik Karlsson, 17:42 of the second period, putting the Penguins up 3-1. Dylan Holloway would score a minute 26 into the third, cutting the lead to 3-2, getting his 21st goal of the season on the power play from Justin Falk and Jake Neighbors. Brian Rust would double up the lead to 4-2, 7:15 of the third period, getting his 22nd goal of the season from Ryan Raquel and Sidney Crosby, 7:15 of the third. Alexei Torpachenko would cut the lead to 4-3, getting his third goal of the year from Ryan Sutter, 8:56 of the third period. So it was 4-3 at that point. The Blues were down by a goal. Unfortunately, they were not able to tie it up, as Ricard Raquel would get his 30th of the year and empty netter from Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust. And that goal happened with 8 seconds to go in the game. So 5-3 would be the final score. The Vegas Golden Knights went into Columbus to take on the Blue Jackets. Nicholas Waugh would kick things off exactly 12 minutes into the first, getting a power play goal, his 9th of the season from Jack Eichel and Thomas Hertl. Brandon Saad would score with 59 seconds to go in the first. That would be his 12th goal of the year from Riley Smith and Nick Waugh. Pavel Dorofeyev would increase the lead to 3-0, getting his 26th of the season from Thomas Hertl and Brandon Saad, 12:17 of the second period. The Blue Jackets were down by 3 goals with just over 4 minutes to go in the game. Hoping to make a comeback, unfortunately they were not able to score, as Alex Pietrangelo would get the empty net goal, his 4th of the season from Kolser and Brandon McNabb. So the Golden Knights would win 4-0. The Devils played host to the Edmonton Oilers. Brett Pesce would kick things off in the second period, getting his 3rd goal of the year from Eric Holla and Jesper Bratt, 3:58 of the second frame. Leon Draisaitl would get his league-leading 47th goal of the season from Connor McDavid and Brett Kulak, 10:05 of the second period, tying the game up at 1. Evan Bouchard would break the tie in the third, getting his 13th of the season from Wallman and Connor McDavid, 4:18 of the third. Jesper Bratt would score 6 minutes and 50 seconds into the third, getting his 19th of the year from Pesce and Meyer. The game was tied up at 2. Simon Nemec would get the game-winning goal, his 1st of the season from Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier, 8:25 of the third period. The Devils would win 3-2. To say that the Oilers are reeling would be an absolute understatement. I think they've only won like 1 or 2 games, and they've lost a lot since coming out of that Four Nations face-off. All right, the Minnesota Wild took to the ice against the New York Rangers. Vincent Trocheck would kick things off for New York in the second period, getting his 18th goal of the year from William Cooley and Keandre Miller, 6:45 of the second frame. Marcus Johansson would tie the game up at 3:55 of the third, getting a power play goal from Nyquist and Jared Spurgeon. Johnny Brodzinski would put the Rangers up 2-1, 6:38 of the third, getting his 7th goal of the season from Zane Jones and Matt Rempe. Frederick Gaudreau would get a power play goal for the Wild, tying the game up at 2, getting his 15th goal of the season, 8:42 of the third, from Ryan Hartman and Jared Spurgeon. We would need overtime to settle this one, and Brandon Schneider would get the game-winning goal, 1:51 of the overtime frame, his 5th goal of the season from Panarin and JT Miller. So the Rangers would win 3-2 in overtime. The Los Angeles Kings played host to the Washington Capitals. Warren Foegele would score, getting the eventual game-winning goal, his 19th of the season from Trevor Moore, 13:08 of the first. Kevin Fiala would increase the lead to 2-0 in the third, his 25th goal of the season on a power play from Kopitar and Drew Doughty. Quinton Byfield would score less than a minute after that, increasing the lead to 3-0 for Byfield. That'd be his 16th goal of the season from Kevin Fiala and Garikov, 1:52 of the third period. And that's where we'd stand at the end of regulation. The Kings would shut out the Capitals 3-0. And the last game took place in San Jose as we had the two worst teams in the Western Conference duking it out. Will Smith would kick things off for the Sharks in the first period, getting his 13th goal of the year from Matt Celebrini and Eklund, 3:48 of the first. Colin Graf would get his third goal of the year from Wenberg and Ferraro, 10:16 of the first period, increasing the lead to 2-0 for the Sharks. Frank Nazar would finally get the Blackhawks on the board 10 seconds into the second period, getting his 6th of the season from Kaiser and Nick Foligno. Colin Graf would increase the lead to 3-1, getting his 4th goal of the year on a power play from Will Smith and Mukhambudullin. That's a fun name to say. 10:17 of the second period, increasing the Sharks' lead to 3-1. Ilya Mikheyev would cut the lead back down to 1, getting his 15th of the season from Ryan Donato and Tiro Teravainen, 13:18 of the second period. The Blackhawks are down by a goal. They tried to pull their goalie. Unfortunately, it backfired as Tyler Toffoli would get credited for the empty net goal, his 25th of the season, and that goal happened with 33 seconds to go in the game. So now we'll take a look at the standings from the National Hockey League. So first things first, we'll take a look at the Atlantic Division. So the Florida Panthers, after 66 games, they have a record of 41-22-3. They have 85 points. The Toronto Maple Leafs have 65 games played, 39-23-3. They have 81 points. They trail the Panthers by 4 points in that division. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are, after 65 games, they are 37-23-5. They have 79 points. They're only 2 points back of Toronto. So if they happen to win their next game and possibly Toronto loses their next game, they could possibly flip positions. But the more I think about it, because Toronto has 2 more wins, Tampa might need 2 wins and Toronto might need 2 losses in order for the Lightning and the Maple Leafs to switch positions. In the Metropolitan Division, the Washington Capitals are still on top. After 66 games played, they have a record of 43-15-8. They have 94 points, which is absolutely absurd. The Carolina Panthers are in second place with a record of 39-22-4. They have 82 points. And the New Jersey Devils have a record of 36-25-6. They have 78 points. They trail the Hurricanes by 4 points for second spot in that division. 2 wildcard teams look like this. The Ottawa Senators have a record of 35-25-5. They have 75 points. They trail the Lightning by 4 points for that third spot in the Atlantic Division. And as for the Blue Jackets, they have a record of 31-26-8. They have 70 points. They trail the Devils by 8 points. So it's more than likely if Columbus is making it to the postseason, they're probably going to have to settle for a wild card spot. So now we'll take a look at the teams that are there, or that are close to there. So the New York Rangers have the same amount of points as the Columbus Blue Jackets, but they have one more game played. They have a record of 32, 28, and 6. The Montreal Canadiens are 1 point back out of a playoff spot with a record of 31, 27, and 7. They have 69 points. The Detroit Red Wings have 68 points, along with the Bruins. Their records are 31, 28, and 6, and 30, 29, and 8, respectively. The New York Islanders are 5 points out of a playoff spot with a record of 29, 28, and 7. They have 65 points. The Philadelphia Flyers are 28, 31, and 8. They have 64 points. They're 6 points out of a playoff spot, as are the Pittsburgh Penguins with a record of 27, 31, and 10. The Buffalo Sabres, to round out the Eastern Conference, have a record of 25, 33, and 6. They are 14 points out of a playoff spot, so it's more than likely the Sabres will miss the playoffs for the 14th year in a row, which is absolutely crazy to think of. All right, now we're going to take a look at the teams in the Western Conference. So in the Central Division, the Winnipeg Jets are still in first place with a record of 45, 17, and 4. They have 94 points. The Dallas Stars have a record of 42, 40, and 2. They have 86 points. And the Colorado Avalanche have a record of 39, 24, and 3. They have 81 points. In the Pacific Division, the Vegas Golden Knights are in first place with a record of 39, 19, and 7. They have 85 points. The Los Angeles Kings have jumped ahead of Edmonton for second place in that division. They're getting hot. Edmonton is not. 35, 20, and 9 is their record. And the Edmonton Oilers are 37, 24, and 4. They are now in third place in that division. The Minnesota Wild are currently occupying the first wildcard spot with a record of 37, 24, and 5. They have 79 points. They only trail Colorado by 2 points for that third spot in that division. So if they happen to win their next game and the Avs happen to lose, they could easily flip spots. The Calgary Flames are holding on to that last wildcard spot with a record of 30, 23, and 11. They have 71 points so far. And then the rest of the Western Conference looks like this. So the Vancouver Canucks are right there with the Flames. They have the same amount of points. The record is just slightly different, 30, 24, and 11. They have played one more game than Calgary. The Utah Hockey Club, they're only 2 points out of a playoff spot, which is crazy to think. 29, 25, and 11, they have 69 points. The Blues also have 69 points with a record of 31, 28, and 7. The Anaheim Ducks are 8 points out of a playoff spot with a record of 28, 30, and 7. They have 63 points. The Seattle Kraken have a record of 28, 34, and 4. They have 60 points. The Nashville Predators have a record of 25, 32, and 7. They have 57 points. The Chicago Blackhawks have a record of 20, 37, and 9. They have 49 points. And the San Jose Sharks have a record of 18, 40, and 9 for 45 points. All right, that's going to take care of this recap from Wednesday and Thursday's action of the National Hockey League. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative as well. Until next time, and as always, take care.